Welcome everybody to our Renify event with David Soble. We're going to be talking about real estate and the law today. Tell us a little bit about your background and what it is. You could do a lot of things in your world if you wanted to. What is it about this particular area of the law that you love to do? What floats your boat?
Real estate and finance law.
Yeah.
Every day is different, Rick. There's never a day I come to the office and there's not a problem that ever presents itself the same way. So I really enjoy, first of all, I love real estate. I've been in real estate since 1990, and I came out of law school working in real estate and in banking and mortgage banking. And I can tell you that there, my tagline is to those people who don't know me is, I'm a real estate and finance attorney, but my real job is like a wet dry vac in the legal arena. I clean up after legal vomit every day, pretty much. And people come into my office and get sick all over my desk with their legal issue. And my job is to clean it up. And I enjoy the cleanup? Not so much, but I love the challenge of the cleanup and the facts as they present themselves. So that's why I love real estate law, and practicing law. Every day is different.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can say personally to our audience, we've worked with you for probably 10 years. I've lost track of the time, but you've helped us on a number of issues.
Right.
And what I like, I get the cleanup part, but I like that you're very proactive. You help us not go down the wrong path in the first place, which is, it's like burglar alarms, right? I'd rather have the burglar alarm before I get robbed, right?
Right. There's a saying in the law, which is, it might sound a little crass, but it's called pay me now or pay me later. And really what that means is to actually do prophylactic work and legal work to help people avoid the pitfalls. My job is, for your viewing audience, also involves just really being a legal GPS for those people who wish to turn it on and get the lay of the land before they go off or drive off a cliff. Okay. So what we do when people come into me or to my associates is what we'll do is we give you all the directions when you hit, let's say, that legal bump in the road. It could be a pothole. It could be a fork in the road. My job is to actually guide you with all the information that we give, that we've learned over the years, my own experience, as well as, not only practical, but the legal experience, and then give that information to the client. And the client's job is to really make a decision based on that good information. We never make the decision for our client. It's like a business decision, Rick. And you and I have worked so well together, and your staff, that, I know that when I communicate with you or to Kat or one of your other colleagues, that you're looking for the information so that you can make the decision that's best for your business. It's not my job to tell you how to run your business. It's just to give you that information. And then once you get that information, the only other thing that a client needs to do is really to pay the gas money. I know that sounds, again, a little bit harsh, but they got to pay the gas money. But at the same time, when we get to that next, proverbial rest area, or that rest stop, you can really rest because you know that the work has been taken care of properly. And in real estate is such a huge umbrella of, it's a general, practice area, real estate. But under real estate, we deal with so many issues. There's around 62 subcategories of real estate. Our relationship is based on several of those categories. Financial disputes, financial issues, mortgage issues, real estate issues, but also we deal with quieting, what we call quieting title. We address legal challenges to our clients' claims of interest in property. We deal with border disputes. We deal with litigation when people have agreements between them that aren't well thought out because they perhaps didn't have an attorney initially review them, or a good attorney review them. And then there are people who don't have any agreement. And so we have to sort through a lot of information to be able to help them get through to the end. Hopefully the end product is that it's resolved in their favor. So that's contract law. So there's a lot of contract law in real estate and also in finance. So that's pretty much it.
That's interesting. A couple of things you bring up there kind of resonate with me. I think, you talk about, pay me now or pay me later. The pay later is so much worse because it's not only more money for the legal representation, but now you've got to stop what you're doing and deal with this problem. You can't run your business anymore. So everything gets put on hold. It's really damaging. I mean, literally running off the cliff, it's not just about damaging the car. Everything gets blown up at that moment. And so it is really important. My experience has been, this is direct experience, is that for me, a lot of my agreements with people, they develop organically. I don't just say, oh, we're going to have an agreement, let's go get an attorney. It's like, okay, we sit down for coffee and we say, oh, this is a good idea. And then we have another meeting and maybe we're friends, and we just end up doing it on a handshake. And then it gets complicated before you realize it. And so one of the questions I wanted to ask you, how can people kind of unpack some of that? And, when they're in an agreement with their friends, it's a handshake agreement, everything's going well, but there's certain red flags down the road and you can see them, and you may be a little bit embarrassed to talk to your friend and say, hey, well, I want to get an attorney in here and let's review this whole thing. How would you approach that? Because it's so easy to just put that aside and not do it.
Right. Well, it's interesting you asked that question. And actually, around 6 months ago, we published my third book, which is called Shady. And I'm not here to promote a book. The books that I write are always free, but the book that came out in December is called Shady: How to Do Business and Protect Your Legal Interest and Financial Interest when you're doing business with friends or relatives. Yeah. Okay. And the essence of the whole book is, yes, you can have a great relationship with people, and it could be a great friend, a family member, or a business colleague that you've worked with for years. It's very comfortable to go into a transaction and do business because usually you have good feelings about the other person. Mm-hmm. And that's really how it should be. It'd be nice if life was like that, ideally. But what happens is, if you don't memorialize those agreements, somewhere down the road, there is a disagreement. It's just part of business, is part of human nature. People envision different things for themselves and their business and their goals, as you know, Rick, because you've been in business for so long. And the best thing that anybody can do is to have a written agreement between the parties, between whether it's your uncle, your aunt, your best buddy, your colleague. The best thing, I mean, the underlying essence of this whole book is, what is a contract? What is an agreement? How do you secure an agreement? How do you project over the long term of what, how do you satisfy provisions of the agreement that you initially create? And then how do you amend that agreement as you organically grow with the person who you have a legal and business relationship with? So it all comes down to having something in writing. You don't have to, just so you know, and for the people who are viewing, you don't have to have a written agreement in almost like 3/4 of the types of business relationships that people have. I mean, you can open a business together on a handshake. You can buy material, buy inventory. You can do whatever you want on a handshake until you start dealing in the arena of real estate, or when you're dealing with anything that lasts, let's say, over a year, like performance-wise, it may take a little bit longer than a year to resolve or to conclude the agreement. You should always have something in writing, okay? In fact, the law in real estate is that if you don't have something in writing, it's really not valid. An oral agreement is not going to be valid for anything over a year when it comes to real estate. So if performance is going to take more than 12 months to satisfy whatever the agreement is, get it in writing. Okay?
So David, that's the ideal, right? People
Right.
set themselves up correctly to start with so they don't grow into this bigger problem they might have. So let's go with human nature, and let's suppose that they haven't done it quite right, but they've done some things. And let's imagine they're not in trouble yet, but let's imagine they can see it coming down the road. They're starting having little disagreements with their partner. or they're starting to have a tenant problem and they don't have a very good lease. Maybe it's poorly written or not appropriate for that particular one because they did it themselves. They downloaded it off the internet and it's just not workable.
Right.
But they're not in trouble yet. No one's suing them yet. But they can see that it's coming. What should they do to start, protecting themselves? Is it too late?
No, not necessarily. Sometimes when you don't have all the information, bottom line, they call it, bottom line means signature for those people who are watching, that both parties or all parties have signed to a contract. You can still, well, hopefully, if there's what we call no integration clause or anti-integration clause, you can use outside documentation to support what the parties had envisioned or what their goals were to be. Because let's say you say to a tenant, look, you're having an issue here on your lease, but I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to modify the payment. We're going to take the payment from, I don't know, $750 a month down to $600 a month. And you do this orally. But the lease, let's say, because it's a landlord-tenant relationship, the lease is for 18 months. And they're only in the 6th month of the transaction. Well, technically, you should have this in writing. But if you don't, you can see just from the conduct between the parties, such as the tenant writing a check now for $600 a month for several months. That's like, circumstantial evidence that shows what the parties had come to an agreement on. The problem is not so much that you have this supporting documentation that supports, let's say, an oral agreement that the parties discussed at a later time. It's having to go to court and then convince a judge and bring all this information for evidence to a judge for them to kind of discern and go through what the agreement should have been. And that's a problem, because no matter what, the minute any party goes to court, nobody's going to win. If you can't get it resolved between yourselves, ultimately you're going to let a third party, which is usually a judge, in some cases a jury. I mean, we ask for jury trials and more substantial situations, but you don't want a third party making the decision for two people, and because it never ever turns out well for one party, and it could be you, and you don't know what the judge is going to do. Judges are, they're people. Most judges have a lot of experience because they see what's going on in the courtroom on a regular basis. So they hopefully, I mean, we all hope that judges see enough of this information that they can go and discern, with all due respect, that maybe one party is telling the court based on their own truth. So it's best not to have to go to court. It's better to have the documentation supporting what the parties were trying to accomplish. But really, the best thing is to have it in writing. So when things start falling apart, getting back to your question, you really want to just start documenting as much as possible the file chronologically. You want nice, clear notes as to a date that you spoke with somebody, or it could be the party themselves. You want what was said, and then what action was taken, and then what documents can you use to support that action, okay? But again, it takes a lot more effort, and you said something a little bit earlier before your question. When you do have a problem, and it's not something that, you didn't do a contract or you didn't go to an attorney beforehand, the problem is not always financial. It does impact your time as a business owner, or your time as a homeowner, or your time working. It takes away from being productive in your life, because now all of a sudden what you have weighing on you every day is a legal issue that most people think of morning, noon, and night. They wake up to it. It's highly emotional when they're being challenged over, their truth or their facts, the way they perceive their facts. And then also the money. So people do not do well in general when they're faced with a legal challenge. Okay, nobody wants to run to an attorney and say, I can't wait to be sued.
Yeah.
Okay, it's after surgery, I think it's the worst thing ever is
So
to be
much,
sued. Yeah,
so much of that resonates with me. Some other people in my life that do care about me, they feel like I'm conflict avoidant. I avoid conflict. The fact is I do avoid conflict because I want to live my life. I don't want to be doing this morning, noon, and night stressful anxiety thing. I don't
right.
feel like I'm in a fight with someone. I'd rather, leave that alone. So this is one of those kind of rhetorical questions. I know the answer to this because you've helped us with this, but a lot of people, I think, don't really want to call an attorney because it's like throwing a hand grenade into the situation and they're just trying to smooth it over, trying to meet someone at the dining room table and work it out. But maybe they can't do that. Are there places where you as an attorney can intercede and not take it all? I was told a long time ago, like 35 years ago when I first started investing in real estate,
Yeah.
the guy told me, he says, Rick, you can negotiate all the way up the courthouse steps, but you never go in. Right? It's just what you're saying. You lose when you go in. Everybody loses when you go in.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the time goes up, the money goes up, all that. So what steps can someone take before they go in the courthouse, which still would involve someone like you to maybe start to unpack some of these problems they've created?
That's a great question. Hopefully I have a great answer for you. When people come with a problem, they also have to they have to weigh the cost and the benefits of going through the legal process. So I'll give you a very good example. I'd like to think it's a good example. I do a lot of seller home disclosure issues, where we, just for your viewing public, people who are selling a home in Michigan as well as in Ohio and most other states have to disclose the condition of a property and any defects with regards to their property that are known defects, before they can convey title to a buyer. Okay? That's the general law throughout the country. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who avoid that responsibility intentionally. And so that's called fraud. So the case I have that I'm going to speak of is just real brief. We have a seller who failed to disclose an issue with a pool, large outdoor pool. Yes, in Michigan, we have pools. And the problem is an $85,000 problem. And we can go back against the seller. I represent the buyer. We can go back against the seller and we can see so many things that the seller knew over a history of around 7 years. We're used to going into the city and pulling permits, and we're used to going to Home Depot and investigating and subpoenaing information. We know how to get the information. So we find all this information about the seller. We have depositions. We catch the seller in several lies and inconsistencies. But here's the reality. The reality of this situation in particular is that the seller is extremely old, not doing well, has made an offer that's pretty significant. It's just not what my client wants. Of course, my client wants the entire, let's say, $85,000. The problem is that even if you are able to go through the whole process, all the way to court in a trial, and you win, the question I have for this client, and I invariably will ask my clients, how do you want to accomplish the final, when we get to the end, how do you want to accomplish this? But you can win. But now all you have is a judgment. You still have to collect on the judgment. So if I have an elderly seller who may not have the monies that my client believes he has, you won't find that out until after you get a judgment. It's very hard to collect. So I tell my clients, go into the transaction when we start the litigation, envision, if you're not going to get the entire amount, what would make you happy to be done with the transaction? Because sometimes the legal expense, and again, the emotion that goes with a litigation, can be so overwhelming that it doesn't actually make the transaction worth it. So an $85,000 problem, it's great if you can get that information and convey it to the court and win, but now you got to collect it. So again, your question is, what is the reality of the situation? When people go and litigate, you can, throughout the litigation, have the opportunity to craft a settlement, to mediate. You know, there's case evaluation in most states now. There's different steps in the litigation where the parties are kind of compelled to deal with each other to try and work out a solution. So when you have a problem, what would be your worst case scenario? That's kind of what you have to look at when you're about to bring a case, okay? Or when you're being sued. What do you want to accomplish? Do you want, you know, are you a principal client? Because if you're so principled that you're not going to do anything, no matter how reasonable a situation can be, because you're going to fight on principle. Principal clients are some of the worst clients to have, because yes, they'll pay, but they could lose in court. So it really is a matter of going in with as much open-mindedness. It's very hard. It's one of the hardest things because people always want to be right, and I understand that. People want to be right about their facts, and we want to make sure they're right about their facts, but we also want to be realistic about what can happen if you go throughout the whole process. And I've seen it. I've been there many times. Sometimes we win, but actually many times we win. I'll rephrase that. But now what do you have to do? You have to go collect. A lot of times it's much more expensive. People try to hide money or they don't have money. And that big windfall that you received in court actually cost you money. You had to pay for the attorney fees. You lost time from your regular position or your business. It took away, there's so many expenses that, you know, aren't really financial, they're emotional. So all these things you have to take into account when you're going through the process. So what do you need to do? Come in with a realistic number as to what you'd be comfortable with if you could settle in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. I'll put my real estate broker hat on for a moment here.
You have a lot of experience in that. I mean,
I've been a broker since 1981, so
right.
It's been a while. One of the things I was a listing agent primarily, and one of the things I would tell my listing, because we had a transfer disclosure statement they needed to fill out, I said, you know, just put it on your kitchen counter, your dining room table. Every time you walk by and you think of something, write it down on there, because you're not going to lose the deal because you told some guy the dishwasher doesn't work, or maybe even you have a foundation problem. You're not going to lose the deal if you tell them that. And problems don't come from sellers like you. You know, if you get your check and it doesn't bounce, you're on your way and you're happy. Buyers have looked at your house for maybe a half an hour or a little bit, and they've had some inspector they don't even know take a look at it.
Right.
And if there's something in there and you could have reasonably known about it, even if you don't know about it, if you could have reasonably known about it, you're going to lose that case, or at least you're going to spend a lot of time defending yourself. And you just don't want to go down that route. So put everything on there. Trust me as your broker to present it in a way that doesn't blow up your deal. I'm not an attorney. Okay, attorneys blow up deals.
Yeah, I'm not a deal killer, but
we always used to say that. I'm being facetious now, but we did kind of say that. I said, you know, I'm going to phrase this in a way that a salesperson would. I'm going to tell them the truth, but I'm not going to blow up your deal with it, unless it needs to be blown up. If they can't handle the crack in the swimming pool, then you're better off without them buying your house. We're going to wait.
Right.
So absolutely, I think it's a big factor that sellers are afraid to disclose because they're afraid they'll lose their sale. And it's the worst thing is to get a sale and have an unhappy buyer that's willing to sue you for it, and you can't get along.
Right. And that's just one type of case, Rick, right?
Sure.
There's so many different ways that people dispute. I'll give you one other example. So we do a lot of commercial loans, usually with the banks, because I used to work for the banks for many years. And we had a major issue about 8 months ago. We're in federal court. We are now, I represent the client, not the lender, but everybody negotiated a great deal for, so that everybody could walk away. By the way, when you settle, anybody who thinks that you always have an upper hand when you settle, nobody wins in a good settlement. Everybody has to give up something in a settlement, okay? So the bank was willing to give something up. My client was willing to give something up. And just the settlement agreement alone, because it's a 7-figure number, was 62 pages long. And it took a long time to get through. And we were done with everything. My clients, we were so happy to negotiate and be done. They were thrilled. To give you an idea, at risk of sounding immodest, a 7-figure number became seriously only a 5-digit number. That's it.
Wow.
And so they were thrilled not to have to pay what the bank was alleging. So here's what happened. When we were finally done, you're probably aware of this, and anybody who's watching this, if there's a settlement, the institutions, banks, or anybody who you owe money to, if there's a settlement, the lending institution or creditor actually has to issue a 1099-C, which is a debt that's been forgiven. What happens is the party that's been forgiven the debt actually has to pay tax on the difference between what they would have paid and what they didn't have to pay. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of that, right?
Yeah, it's
Rick?
called boot, in a way that we call it boot. Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, you didn't get any money, but they're going to tax you on it.
That's correct. So it's a big number. And the tax will be a big number, but the tax is not even remotely close to what the total obligation would have been had we not been involved with this transaction. And we bring in the CPA, and the client now is very unhappy about the tax that he has to pay. So of course we renegotiate again to be able to, to offset the tax. But there's still going to be a tax, no matter what you do. The whole idea there is, even when you think that you're done, you're never done. And you have to be prepared that when you make a settlement, that again, you're going to have to walk away a little bit unhappy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Some people watching this will say, well, I'll never work with you because I will never be an unhappy client. You will always make me happy. Well, we try. We try very hard, but we can't ignore the reality of the law. And a lot of people live on hopium, I call it, Rick. They hope that their fact pattern, or they hope that everything will be okay. They hope that they can get away with not having a signed agreement, or that the agreement that they used when they pulled it offline is going to cover their butt when they move forward with whatever business or real estate or whatever type of contract you want to enter into. Living on hopium is a terrible thing. But for me, it's a wonderful thing, because I love when people live on hopium and don't go. It doesn't have to be me. Go to an attorney. Go to any real estate attorney if it's a real estate deal who's got great experience, okay? If you can find that person, use them. But you don't have to come to me. But at the very least, go get an attorney. If you have an issue related to employment, which is a big thing right now, right, Rick? Because we're in the COVID crisis right now, hopefully the wake of the COVID crisis. But, I have people who call us and they ask us for employment legal advice. I'm not an employment attorney, and I would never pretend to be one. And so I tell those people, you know what you need to do? And they say, what? I say, you got to call a lawyer who specializes in employment law. And we give them a number, and hopefully they do that. They should not just go to a general attorney to do the work that is required by an attorney who focuses in that practice area. So the ABA recognizes 81 areas of special law practice areas, okay? So 81 specialties, as they say, of practice. There's admiralty law, there's finance law, there's equestrian law, like dealing with horses and trading horses. There's so many different areas of law. And underneath those categories of the 81 practice areas, according to the ABA, there's another 50 subcategories for each category. So in this marketplace, you cannot work with an attorney who's a generalist. And there's a lot of guys who only do general law. They're called general practitioners. Yeah, they can write a will. Yeah, they can review a lease, hopefully. But you want somebody who specializes in that area. I'll give you an example. I just met an attorney online a couple of weeks ago. His whole practice is devoted to Amazon resellers or Amazon sellers.
Mhm.
It's all he deals with. It's a very niche area. And I was really intrigued because it deals a lot with not just contracts, but it deals with intellectual property. And that's his whole specialty. And he just whittled it down to be a real focused practice area. Well, the law is so specialized these days because there's so many different needs and areas for business owners and individuals to accomplish. You need to go to somebody who specializes in that area. So I'll give you another example. I have a lady, we do a lot of asset planning. It's a natural outgrowth for what we do because real estate is one of the largest assets in most people's estates, right? Their home, maybe a building, but real estate is a large asset. And so we protect that by doing estate plans and asset planning programs. Well, I had a lady who called us and she wanted an estate plan, and we have an estate planning attorney in my office, but she has a special needs child. We can only do so much. We're not specialists when it comes to the special needs trust that there are, that these adult, people who are disabled adults will need after their parents pass on. So there's a whole area of practice, and there are attorneys that only specialize in special needs trust and taking care of disabled adults. So you have to go to a specialist in this day and age.
I so much agree with that. I've seen it. An attorney who tries to practice too broad of an area, they're a generalist, and the law is so specific, and it may cost just a little bit more to go to the specialist that knows that field exactly, but that's what you need to do, because the long run, they're going to get it right more often.
Right.
So clearly, Jen Lee would say, she's another attorney actually we've worked with. She's a bankruptcy attorney. And and so she basically, her phrase is, you don't know what you don't know. We're all oblivious to something.
Right.
And you want to go to an attorney that's not oblivious to the particular issue that you're trying to, get a handle on. It's really important, I think.
Well, the other thing though, Rick, too, is that people are so conditioned to two things in today's world, and that is they want immediacy because of the internet. Everything, needs an answer immediately. The law doesn't work that way. The law is steeped in thousands of years of English history, legal history, and there are volumes and volumes and volumes of cases and statutes. So people look for a quick answer from an attorney, and sometimes they'll just take any answer from an attorney as if it were permission to be able to do what they want to do, right? They'll pick up the phone and call and say, hey, can I do this? And we're like, no, we don't give legal advice over the phone. Yeah. But if you're looking for just a quick answer in the law, the attorney actually needs to know your fact situation, what's going on, and needs to usually review a contract or see the documents or see what it is that you're talking about. Because over the phone, people will call or they'll email. It doesn't help, right? That's number one. The other thing is that because of, I guess, these, discounted programs, which you can shop online and you can be very competitive with like Google Shopping and what have you. It's easy to say, well, I'm not going to go to an attorney who cost X because this attorney who I found cost, several dollars less. And so I'm going to go with a cheaper attorney. That doesn't do anybody any good because the cheaper attorney sometimes or the less expensive attorney, will be politically correct, will actually, if they don't have the experience, is going to take maybe twice as long to get the work product done or to get you the information that you need. Or they long walk you, okay? They take you around so long that by the time you're done, had you just gone to the specialist, who, yes, is a little bit more, I pride myself in getting people to the exit as quickly as possible. If you go online and read about my office and my practice, so many people will say, gosh, when I call Soble Law, they will tell me right away what other people won't. Or I can, I know enough that I can say, don't do it this way, do it that way. And it may cost you a little bit more, but it's going to get your solution that you're looking for a lot quicker. So the two areas that people have problems with in what I recognize in today's legal environment is everybody wants something fast, a quick answer. They can read it online and they think that situation applies to their situation, and therefore they're going to do it on their own. And then the second thing is that they try to find the least expensive attorney out there to do the work. But again, if that attorney doesn't have the experience or they're not focused in that area, you've just wasted a whole bunch of time, and you're going to end up spending more if on that problem to get resolved. So to me, that's a major issue.
There's another thing that Jen Lee says, and maybe it's just a common expression in the legal world, I don't know, but I think it's hilarious. She basically says, your Google search is not equivalent to my law degree. That's
really, what, it's interesting, I've seen that, and actually I think we in my business development department, we have something that says that. But what people don't realize, like when you, especially in medicine, I'm going to give the example of medicine. I can go online and look at, 5 great ways to, use natural sunblock or what have you. I don't know, because I'm a little red because it was outside today. So that's what I'm giving you is the example. But, let's say you have a skin condition and you're just using natural products that you read about online, but you find out that you actually have a serious skin condition. You should have gone to a dermatologist who could give you that product to take care of whatever is necessary so that you don't have that issue. It's easy to go online and get information, but if it becomes problematic, you better go to that specialist. The other thing about what your bankruptcy attorney or bankruptcy counsel had said is that people need to understand that you're paying a fractional amount of money for somebody's experience. I call that you're paying, it's like a fractional attorney or a fractional CEO. You're paying for a very small portion of that person's insight to do the work. So you didn't have to go to law school or you didn't have to go to med school. Pay it, And
there's more to it.
It's so much easier.
There's more to it too.
Sure.
We've used you quite a few times.
Yeah.
Some of the things we've used you for, I probably could have done it myself. But the fact is, I want to run my business. I don't want to get into that stuff. That's what you do for a living.
Right.
Again, in a real estate seminar when I was just first starting out, the guy up on stage, he just said, if you're mowing your own lawn, you're losing money. Now, I can mow my own lawn. I can do a really good job of it. But I can make more money doing what I'm trained to do. And someone else can get paid for doing the lawn because that's what they do. So, it just made so much sense to me right then. And I think there's another thing we teach at Renify in terms of behavioral finance. And this has been studied over and over again. Less successful people will go to like their aunt or uncle for a legal question, right? Someone who has no clue about it. What do you think of this crack in my pool? They go ask their uncle about it. Right. More successful people will seek out the person that they think has the most likely going to have the answer, even if they have to pay a little bit for that advice, because they get the right answer, they move on with their life. The other guy doesn't fix the pool if that was the question, and now they've got a bigger $85,000 problem maybe.
Right. I call that outside chatter. People will listen to outside chatter, but when you have to then go back and rely on that person who gave you that advice, or it could be unsolicited advice, they're not there. They don't have any skin in the game. Right. They don't care. So just go to the expert.
The thing is, to me, assuming that I want to be successful, do I want to emulate the people who aren't or the people who are? And I look at, okay, what are those people doing that's better than I am? One of the things they're doing is they always go get quality advice no matter what it is they're doing. They don't try to redo their bathroom when they're an accountant and they don't know anything about carpentry, right? They don't try to do that themselves. They go find someone who knows how to do it and they're willing to pay for that. So
it makes it easier, definitely.
So I want to get into some practical things here, and a little bit outside the law, but I just want to take a little advantage of some of your life experience, because you've seen you've seen people come to you with all sorts of problems, and I'm sure you can kind of sit back and look at it. You can see the evolution of that. You can say, well, here's where it started way back then when you bought this property on a handshake, right? And now you're here 5 years later and you have this issue. So what kind of people, types, I'm going to put them in brackets, are people that are well suited to invest in, let's say, small real estate for now, houses, small apartment buildings, duplexes, things like that. What kind of people are suited for it? And have you seen personalities maybe, or financial situations where they really, maybe they should go invest in a REIT, a real estate investment trust, which is
Right.
hands off, they just write the check. And maybe they shouldn't be trying to manage property and manage people and fix toilets and water heaters and things. What, is there a type of person who's suited for that industry, and somebody else who, even though it looks attractive, maybe should think about it?
That happens to be a great question. I don't think I can paint a broad brush, but as a very active real estate investor myself for many years, dealing with hundreds of properties, not only for myself, but then also for the banks, into the billions when it comes to real estate portfolios. One of the things I think that is most important is, if you're just starting out, you have to ask yourself, what type of time commitment can you give to the property, okay, to your investment? So no matter what, the first thing that you should dedicate your time to or towards would be to educate yourself on whatever type of real estate product you're getting involved with, which could be a REIT as well, Rick, right? So education is number one. I know Renify does quite a bit of education when it comes to financial, the financial arena and home ownership. But if you're going to deal with investment property, the first thing that you probably would want to do is seek out other like-minded people who congregate and discuss real estate on a regular basis, and that they have different levels of experience. There are programs that you can go to weekly or monthly. I'm very active in several that I speak at around Metro Detroit. I appear on stuff for different programs throughout the country through teleconferencing before this whole Zoom craze with COVID. But, you have to take some time to educate yourself. So number one would be, how much time do you have? Okay. And the people who I think do best in small real estate investment areas are going to be the people who have a background in contracting, or that they're handy initially, for two reasons. Number one, you have to be able, especially if you're dealing with one investment property and you're going to try and rent it out, you're going to, your tenant, if you don't negotiate the proper lease, you are going to have to do some of the repairs to that property. And nothing gets eaten up quicker than repairs if you're going to be bringing in third-party repair people, okay? That's number one. Number two, it really would help if you took the time to learn how to do these repairs, or what it could cost to do a repair, by going through, like when you're going to look at a property, you need to know what you're looking for, right? Oh, that repair should cost approximately this much. You have to have an idea of small repair work, I guess, is what it comes down to. So again, you have to educate yourself. A lot of people who are new landlords learn real fast on how to, let's say, snake a toilet, deal with a drain. I mean, you've been a real estate investor for years, Rick. I don't know, did you grow up doing contract work? But, at some point, you have to get in there on your own and do the repair, or it's going to cost you more money and eat into your profit if you're going to hire in third-party contractors, okay? No matter if you're doing the repairs, or if you're going to appraise a property and get an idea of what you should be buying a property for. So it's about time.
That so resonates. There's a little book. It's a parable form. I think it's called The Richest Man in Babylon, if I'm not confused.
Yeah, great book.
And
right.
Basically, one of the ideas, it's a great book. You can read it in a couple hours probably. It's a parable, but it says invest in what you know, right? And so the reason I got into real estate investing was because I got into real estate sales, and I became a broker, and I was dealing with it in and out every day. And I had people around me that I didn't hire. They were just other salespeople, other landlords. I mean, I was living and breathing that every single day. So it made sense. And when I bought some properties, you know, like everybody, I had difficulties. I had lots of people to go, oh man, look what happened here. What do you know? What would you do? And they say, yeah, we did that too. And here's what we did about it. So there was a lot of that. And so to answer my own question about who should invest in real estate, I think it's somebody who does know, like you say, maybe they're handy, maybe they're a contractor, maybe they have some other reason. Maybe they're a lender, I don't know, but they need to have a connection, because there's so many different things. And this is where my tunnel vision came in. I couldn't see the other things. There's so many other things you can invest in. You know, if you're a high-tech worker, you can invest in, you know, a high-tech startup or something. You'd probably be safer because you understand that world. And I had someone come to me, not to belabor this point, but I had someone come to me, you know, maybe 10 years after I was into the business. And they were all excited because they just made $30,000 profit in like 6 weeks or something. It was longer. It was like 3 or 4 months. They $30,000 profit. And I said, okay, well, let's break that down a little bit. It turns out, yes, they made a little bit in profit, but what they really did is they earned the money. Instead of doing their job, and I've forgotten what that was, they were sneaking toilets and they were fixing doors and they were redoing windows and laying carpet. They got a real education on how to renovate a house, but they did it themselves. And I said, okay, well, let's look at this 30,000. It looks to me like you earned about 10,000 of it, maybe more. And the other part was profit. If you had hired someone to do all that work, especially at union rates and stuff, you might actually have come out behind.
Right. And I don't like, that's why I say, I don't think you can have a broad brush and say, you know, exactly who fits the mold for a real estate investor. But I will tell you this. I mean, I'm going to be very honest. I am a terrible landlord. I've told you this on the phone, I believe. I have no patience being a landlord, okay? And I deal with properties every day. I like what we call in Michigan, it's called land contracts. I like to do land contracts. Out west, they call them like mortgage deeds and stuff like that. But here we call them land contracts. It's a whole different type of animal than just a landlord-tenant relationship. I have no patience with tenants per se. Doesn't mean they're bad people. I just don't have that. I don't want to be the guy that they call. Now, here's the thing. You can be a real estate investor, and guess what? You hire a property management company, okay? And so what type of person could be a real estate investor? Somebody who says, you know what? They recognize their strengths and weaknesses and say, I don't want to deal with the day-to-day operations. I'm going to hire, again, we get to the same theme of this conversation today. I'm going to hire an expert who deals not just with one transaction, but many rental properties that they manage. They deal with the repairs. They have a group of people that come and collect money. They have a software system that's able to process the lease and collect monthly late fees or water bills, whatever it is. So you're not reinventing the wheel. There are people out there that will take care of it. So what type of people invest in real estate? Small properties, medium properties. Maybe some of those people are those who are willing to give up a piece of their income, because that's what you have to do, and then go get a property management company, okay? That doesn't come, by the way, that's not a panacea. You have to find the right property management company, as you know. So again, it risks it sounding like I'm not here. I don't want this to be a like a infomercial. I'm not selling anything, but because I deal with this every day, everything that touches real estate, except for maybe land use issues and zoning and permits, because I do not like that area, it's like a hub and a spoke in my office. The hub is real estate, but we deal with real estate when we have to sue property management companies who don't take care of their clients' best interest. They have a fiduciary relationship to their clients and they steal money, or they have conflicts of interest when they give the work on behalf of a client over to their brother or sister who owns a contracting company and overcharge the property owner. I mean, whatever it is, we'll deal with that, okay? We deal with divorce in real estate. We deal with probate in real estate. These are the different spokes that we deal with. But coming from experience, when it comes to real estate investment, you know, you can use a property management company. How do you know? So we get back to what kind of person becomes a property investor? Somebody who goes to educate themselves so that when they go to a meetup or they go online and they ask questions, they can say to one of their contemporaries, hey, I'm about to buy a property. I'm not the greatest at doing repairs. Could you recommend a good property management company? Instead of going online on your own, because you cannot do real estate investment in a vacuum.
That's
There are
right.
people who, right? You cannot do it. You have to have a community. That's just how I've always seen it. You have to have a community of real estate investors where you can learn from others who are willing to give you that information, genuine authenticity. They want to work with you. They want to teach you, because guess what? They're looking for deals. And if they can help you improve your business, perhaps then you can give back and you can say, I'm not the kind of guy who's going to buy this property, Joe, but you have more experience than I do. So, hey, maybe it's something that we can do together, or maybe it's something you want to look at on your own. If you are willing to go out there and try and get the information and educate yourself, I love endless referrals, but I educated myself based on how do you deal with people in a networking environment? How do you give back? That's one of the ways. Get out there, get the information. There's so many groups in Michigan. We have tons of really good groups. I'm affiliated with several that if people are interested in finding out more information, I can refer them to it. But we have Rick, as you know, I have an extremely extensive professional network that I've developed over 30 years in real estate and real estate law. And I don't get anything out of it, but when somebody needs something, that's that go-giver mentality. I have enough information that I've learned over the years from experience and also from going to these meetings and meeting different people, that I can say to somebody, hey, I'm not the guy, but I know somebody that might be able to help you get to where you need to go. It could be an appraiser, it could be a real estate investor, it could be an advertiser, whatever you want. But that's part of getting good information and educating yourself.
Well,
but I have to, go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, you say it doesn't do anything for you, but the fact is, I think it does, because I think when we live our lives that way, it's not a one-to-one relationship. You do something that helps someone, it may never come back to you, right? But if you make your lifestyle about doing that, there'll be plenty of times when later you need something, and now you've got someone in your network, and you've already helped them out. There's a reciprocity thing going on there.
Right.
I want to get into, and I wanted to say one last thing. I think I had an idea who should be in real estate and who shouldn't be. In small real estate, like single family dwellings, that's where people get in because it's easy. You can leverage it. You don't need much money. I would say it should be someone who has excellent soft skills, or at least developing those. If you're not a really good people person, you don't want to be managing property. It's like being a parent, and you're really got to be good at it. You've got to have a lot of patience. If you don't have the patience, maybe you need to be leveraging into a strip center or a commercial building or something that is professionally managed by somebody, maybe an apartment complex over 12 units or whatever. So I wanted to get into one last area of the law, which kind of relates to that. Single family dwellings, that is an entry point, but people, sometimes they want to go bigger and they don't have the money. And so they'll partner up with someone, and maybe they'll say, you know what, I've got the expertise, you've got some money, let's go together and do something. What I only have a few minutes here, but what are the pitfalls, and maybe better than the pitfalls, how should they set that up properly to start with? Because that's one of those things we talked about in the beginning, where it's just a handshake and it just develops organically. But my belief is they need to go to somebody like you and get it done, no matter who it is. But how would you say they set that up properly?
It's a partnership. First of all, it's a partnership. You can join, you can actually create a corporation between the two parties, or it can be a joint venture, or it could be just a regular partnership, two people that come together to accomplish a business goal. But here's the thing, it's got to be in writing. It's all about setting expectations, okay? A contract, no matter what it is, the whole transaction in a real estate contract or in a business contract or in a lease agreement, all of them have the first 20% will state all the good things that both parties are going to get from each other. Okay, you're gonna contribute this, and I'm going to give you the equity, or we're going to both work on this together, and we're going to get this home together. Whatever it is, that first 20% of the agreement is, what are the expectations? People are excited. They want to make money. They want a new endeavor. They want a new career. they want to get out of a rut, whatever motivates them, the idea that they're going to accomplish a goal is usually that first 20% of an agreement. Now, here's the thing. The other 80% of the agreement is what the other party is going to do to you when you fail to meet your obligations under the agreement, okay? So that's called default provisions. What are the remedies that people have against you? What are the legal remedies? What are the accounting requirements? What are the day-to-day operating requirements? These are all things that people have to set up. And it's much more complicated than what most people envision. And I feel sorry for those people, because to me, those people haven't really done what we've just talked about, which is taking the time to just educate themselves a little bit before they get involved. So I work on a lot of examples, Rick, as you know, because that's all I can share really when it comes to the law. But I'll give you something that's very popular, but very unfortunate that we see every day. And that is, we will have couples who are not married, but they're boyfriend and girlfriend, girlfriend and girlfriend, boyfriend and boyfriend, what have you. They go and they buy a home together. It can be their primary residence, or it could be a rental property, but they buy a property together and they have all these expectations. One party's contributed more to the transaction than the other, and then the deal falls apart. But because they had a relationship, they were each other's significant other, and they love each other, they never envisioned that there's going to be a problem. Here's the thing. I don't know what the law is in California. I have I know it's different, of course, when it comes to divorce law. In Michigan, we have no fault divorce. I'm not a divorce attorney, but here's the thing. If the parties are married, they're protected more as to how property is distributed. But when you're not married, you're just treated as partners. And if you didn't put together an agreement as to who was supposed to contribute what, and when was somebody supposed to get whatever proceeds were coming out of the transaction in the event of a sale or a refinance, if those items have not been resolved, you're both going to court, and you're really fighting over a business deal.
So in a sense,
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm running a little short of time, but
sure.
In a sense, the marriage is the contract, and if you don't have a marriage, you need a contract. It sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and the law doesn't recognize, common law marriage. So you have to have, an agreement. And if anybody leaves today with one thing that that they found important from my standpoint, is that you do need to have something in writing, set forth your expectations, memorialize it, and go to the right legal advisor to help you craft and generate that agreement so that there are no surprises or disappointments in the end. There's going to be disappointments if something falls apart. There usually is. But when you've managed you've managed the transaction, and you've kind of set yourself up to know what the worst case scenario could be, then guess what? Makes things a lot easier to do business.
I appreciate all this, David. This has been a really good conversation. There's a lot of good information in here. I see your phone number there at the bottom. Yeah. I'd like you to take just a moment to tell people, what your company name is, your website, how they can get a hold of you. And then I've got a question for you, because I think one reason people don't call attorneys is because they know it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them lots of money. They don't even know what it is. They just, in their mind, it's lots of money. So how does that work? Are you sitting there with like a chess timer the moment they call in on the phone? Are they going to be billed for a minute?
No.
How does that work?
No. You know what? First of all, we do a lot of video content, and we have tons of content for people looking to find out more about their problem. Okay, so one of the areas that always comes up is, how do attorneys make their money, their fees, how do they charge? There are so many different ways. Everybody hears about the hourly rate, but there's also hybrid type fees where it's an hourly or a flat fee. We do a lot of transactional deals. That's real estate transactions. We do a lot of contract paperwork. It has nothing to do with litigation. Those we'll give you a fixed fee for. We'll tell you an approximate amount of what this should cost okay, to do an agreement. And then we can give you an idea when it comes to litigation, how much that's going to cost, okay? But nobody should mistake the fact that we are lawyers, unless you're doing the work, what we call for free, pro bono, pardon me. Yeah, I mean, we are a business. Our job is to give legal advice, sound legal advice to protect people's financial and legal exposure, okay? So when people call, there's nothing wrong with somebody explaining their situation and then saying to the attorney and asking the attorney, how are you charging? Or how do I pay for this? Okay, a good attorney will tell you, again, set the expectations, they'll put it in writing, they'll give you everything you need to know on how to not only pay an attorney, but how to communicate with the law office, what you can expect from the law office. These are all things that usually are memorialized in an engagement agreement between the attorney and the client. If the attorney doesn't give you an engagement agreement or doesn't spell out what they're going to do for you, you need to walk away. But we tell our clients, and most good attorneys will say, this is what it's going to cost. But Rick, litigation is always the most expensive part of any legal endeavor or engagement that you're going to find when you're working with an attorney. If you have to litigate, it's going to be expensive. Everything before that should be, either an hourly rate or it's going to be a fixed rate, but it should never be as much as if you had to go and litigate your matter. Okay?
That's an incredibly good way to wrap this up, because it takes us all the way back to the beginning. If litigation is the most expensive thing you can do, and if being proactive and having a good tight contract, you could do that right off the bat, you're most likely going to prevent needing to go down the litigation thing. The litigation comes from that handshake agreement that you never really turned into something solid.
Right.
Well, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, you know what? The phone number is corrected there. It's 888-789-1715. We handle the whole state of Michigan as well as Ohio when it comes to real estate, contracts, and financial disputes. The best thing for anybody to do, we're always happy to take your call. We have a 24-hour response rule in my office, and we will call you back within 24 hours. But we also love it when people go to our site, which is provenresource.com. My law firm is Soble Law, but the website's called Proven Resource. And on that site, you can get videos, questions and answers. We have slide shares. I have now I have 6 books related to real estate in different areas of people's lives. They're all free. They're designed for people to be able to read them within a very short period of time. We make everything as easy and approachable as possible to understand, because we do know that, if you need an attorney and you're not an attorney, you want the most simplistic, straightforward explanation as to, what you could be encountering in the legal arena. But the last way to reach us is just type in my name, which is David Soble, attorney. I believe that when you call us, we want to leave you and leave the conversation where you're better off than you were before you called me, okay? So if I can impart some information to you when you call and you have a problem, if I can't help you, I'm going to give you the right place to call and hopefully give you a little bit of information that will help your situation, even if I'm not the guy for you, okay? So that's how my colleagues and I work. And thank God I'm blessed with 30 years in the business with a really nice group of colleagues. And it's our job to basically make sure that we're approachable, we're affordable, and most importantly, we give you the information you need to make the decision based on, we respect you enough so you make your own decision.
And I like that you're more resolution minded as opposed to conflict minded. I mean, that's the route we always want to go down.
Oh, sure.
It's cheaper, it's quicker, you feel better, and you always seem to take it in that direction when we can.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate everything that you do as a client, as well as what you've been doing for your membership in the Renify program. So thank you.
Thank you too.